too, are like serfs. They end up deeply in debt to the companies and always at risk of losing everything they have.
Along those lines, I spoke to organic farmers across Texas, and they say the only way out of that system of economic enslavement is to start selling direct to consumers. That's the only way. If they go through those conglomerate corporations, then they always end up trapped in situations just like you described, George. The only way out of that is to sell direct to consumers or go through CSAs, and that's why you, the consumer listening to this, you can help make a difference by purchasing through CSAs. Again, that's community-supported agriculture, farmers markets, food co-ops. When you support your local farmers and ranchers, you actually make a measurable improvement in the quality of the food that not only you eat, but that is produced in your local area. And that's good for humanity. It's good for the planet. It's good for the country's economy. It's good for everything. It's one of the best practices you can do. It's almost a revolutionary act. It's that good.
I just wonder why, it's tough times right now. People are having a hard time putting food on the table. A lot of them out of job completely. It's hard to tell them you have to buy something that is inevitably more expensive eggs or meat or something like that. Why does it have to be more expensive? Is it a matter of people just have to start buying it in larger quantities for the price to come down, or is it always going to be a disadvantage for those smaller guys against the gigantic economies of scale of these huge slaughterhouses?
Well, it's interesting. It's only more expensive if you look at the actual poundage, but if you look at the nutritional quality, the local organic produce is actually less expensive per gram of nutrients that you're getting. That's an interesting way to look at it. You can eat a lot of macaroni and cheese. It's really cheap, and you get almost no minerals, no nutrients, no vitamins, virtually none. But you could have just one organic fresh tomato that might seem more expensive, but it will give you an abundance of natural plant-based nutrients that can help prevent cancer and enhance your organ function throughout your body. So we've got to start looking at food as the nutritional delivery and not just how many pounds it weighs. And then it starts to make a lot of sense.
You made a reference to, and I mentioned it in the introduction, of your own health problems and when you had to confront this thing. Talk to me about that, and then we'll segue sort of into the health consequences of what we're eating, what we buy at the supermarket. And I'd like you to use some examples of what we're eating that's just flat out bad for us.
Okay, and I will do so. I used to be borderline type 2 diabetic. I was hypoglycemic. I was nearly obese, chronic pain, depression, all of that. I've been there. So I know what it's like to be there. And I woke up one day and realized that I was eating my way into that state. And I began to read about sugar. And then I decided to take refined sugar out of my diet, and I got good results. So I started reading about other things. And year after year, well, actually, it was faster than a few years. It was actually only about 6 months that I made these transformations. I got the unhealthy things out of my diet, and I started increasing my nutritional density. I was actually eating more. So I wasn't trying to lose weight by eating less. I was eating more. I was almost stuffing myself with green smoothies and fresh juice and these things that I allowed myself to eat as much as I wanted, and I began to lose weight. I dropped 50 pounds of body fat in about 6 months. And everything started to work better. Even cognitively, I began to be able to learn foreign languages more easily. I became a prolific writer. I mean, people think about health as just the body, but it's also the brain. And when your brain works well, life is easier. And what a great investment to invest in superfoods and high nutrient density foods. Makes your brain work better and your body look better. So it's a great path to pursue.
Well, we're going to be taking a break in a moment, but I want to get into the stuff that Americans do eat, and that's X-Lax and milk of magnesia and Pepto-Bismol and Diet Coke, light beer, all that stuff that doesn't seem to get the job done. And then in the next hour, we'll talk about Agribiz's good friends in government, so-called regulators. Stay with us. We're talking with the Health Ranger here on Coast to Coast AM. Mike Adams, I had asked you before the break to give us sort of a laundry list, examples of addictive stuff they put in foods, unhealthy stuff, and what the consequences are for Americans.
Okay, yeah, sure. Quite a few there. Monosodium glutamate we talked about, aspartame,
Right.
which is found in diet sodas, something to be very careful about. Another big one that a lot of people aren't aware of is soy protein. Now, I'm concerned about soy protein, and you
Wait,
find
before
it.
wait, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Before we leave that diet soda thing, what's wrong
Yeah.
with aspartame?
Oh my! Aspartame is actually made from a genetically modified strain of bacteria, and it's a chemical sweetener that breaks down in your body into a number of chemicals, one of them being formaldehyde. And formaldehyde is a potent neurotoxin. So aspartame, that's why it's linked to dizziness and blindness and migraine headaches and many other neurological conditions.
So somebody who likes to drink soda, would they be better off drinking a Coke or the Diet Coke? Or I guess you'd say neither one.
Well, I'd say you're better off drinking the regular stuff. And Coke used to be sweetened with cane sugar. That's when it was actually not so bad for you. I mean, there's phosphoric acid in it, which is highly acidic, but, natural sugar will be better than the high fructose corn syrup, and certainly better than the aspartame.
Okay. Other examples?
We talked about soy protein, or I mentioned that. Soy protein usually comes from genetically modified soybeans, and it is extracted using a toxic chemical solvent known as hexane. And hexane is highly explosive. In fact, one processing facility in the U.S. exploded like a bomb, like a terrorist bomb, but they were just extracting soy protein. It kind of makes you wonder what kind of chemicals come into contact with your food. So I personally advise people to avoid soy protein. That means you got to check out a lot of your protein food bars because soy protein is very cheap. Go with whey protein or brown rice protein. It's much healthier, in my opinion.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, just want to mention one more. Sodium nitrite. Sodium nitrite is used to color processed meats. Hinted at that earlier, but that's related to cancers, and it's well documented. A lot of science on this. You can search everything I'm mentioning here, and you can find it supported through search engines.
I wanted to talk for a bit about regulators and why they have failed to come to the rescue. And there's a story we posted on our website. I'm sure you read it as well. It's about these voluntary nutrition guidelines that were suggested for kids, for food that is targeted to kids. And big food industries oppose these things, even though they're voluntary guidelines. They're pretty, pretty generic, not hardly revolutionary at all. It sort of is an example of how things work in Washington, is it not?
The fact that they didn't want to adopt these?
Yeah, the fact that they would jump up, use their influence, try to stop these things from being enacted, even though they're voluntary guidelines to begin with. Yeah,
it's pretty clear. The FDA, Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, it's very clear it has betrayed the American people and really sold out to private industry. So the FDA is always siding with big food companies and, of course, big drug companies and big vaccine companies, but never really or rarely making any kind of decision that protects the public. And a great example of this just came up on the radar. This is breaking news, actually. The FDA recently announced that it has a plan in place that would virtually wipe out all nutritional supplements that have been formulated since 1994. So we're looking at a possible an end to the dietary supplements and superfoods and nutritional supplements industry in America in the next few months if we don't take a stand against this. And I've been on the phone with industry leaders and attorneys, and there is an effort underway now to really fight this FDA, this new regulatory effort, and protect the freedom to access nutritional supplements in America.
You mean like vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin E, what? Vitamins?
Yes, vitamins. The FDA is warning that vitamins could be taken off the market if they are packaged in different serving sizes. For example, perhaps vitamin C as 100 milligrams used to be legal, but if you try to sell it in 500 milligrams or 1,000 milligrams, you would now have to seek a new approval from the FDA through this NDI, New Dietary Ingredient Application. And they're going to require every company in America who makes vitamins and nutrients to apply for every ingredient in every product that they sell, and they have to do this or take their products off the market.
My gosh! So help me understand who's behind that. Let me guess.
Well,
go ahead and tell me why the FDA took this action.
Well, it's very clear. Yeah, the FDA, I believe, wants people to not have access to things that keep them alive and keep them healthy. The FDA wants everybody to run to the pharmaceutical companies so that the drug companies make all the money. And the drug companies, remember, they don't really cure any diseases. They don't really prevent disease. They don't help you be healthy. All they do is they sort of manage your sickness. That's why when you're on diabetes drugs, you're never cured of diabetes. And you have to keep taking the drugs. If you stop taking the drugs, then all the symptoms come back. That tells you that the drugs aren't really helping you. They're just sort of getting you along. And if you take away the nutritional products in America, which has happened across many products in the EU, in Europe today, they've banned hundreds of products just in the last few months. Now the FDA is trying to do the same thing in America. We could end up in a situation here before the end of this year where health food stores are put out of business across the country. I mean, we could be looking at tens of billions of dollars of losses to the economy, hundreds of thousands of jobs, and forcing everybody to run into Obama's healthcare system to seek treatment because they can't buy vitamins and nutrients anymore.
Well, that's just outrageous. That's outrageous. Now, what do people do to stop that? What is it? Just as simple as calling your congressman or sending an email? What do people need to do to put the kibosh on that right now?
Well, there's going to be a call-in day of September 8th. This is being organized across the industry. The Alliance for Natural Health, anh-usa.org, is a nonprofit that we are working with to help organize this. We're launching a website, a rally point. I'm not going to mention that here, but we'll have it announced at naturalnews.com. We're going to have petitions. We're going to have interviews with industry leaders. We are going to put the word out to chiropractors and herbalists and health food stores all across the country to get people to rally to fight this FDA regulation. And I think we'll be successful if we could raise enough awareness.
You know, I haven't looked at the FDA as much as I've looked at USDA. And I know that USDA, the whole Department of Agriculture, is infiltrated, controlled by people who, it's like a revolving door, like so many government agencies. They're in the beef industry one day, they're regulating the beef industry the next day, and so on. Many examples of that is the FDA, pretty much the same way. Somebody works for the drug companies, and now they're working for the FDA.
Yeah, it's a revolving door, as they say, and you nailed it. And the USDA recently made a landmark decision that is very disturbing. The Scott's Miracle Grow company applied to the USDA for approval of a genetically modified lawn seed so that consumers could plant GMO grass on their front lawns and then spray their lawns with Roundup herbicide. And the USDA, instead of approving it or rejecting it, the USDA said, get this, they said, we cannot regulate this GMO at all. We don't even have the power to regulate it. Therefore, you can just sell it without our approval. So as of right now, the Scott's Miracle Grow company is working on commercializing this seed. And in early 2012, or as early as the spring of 2012, we could see genetically modified front lawns in your neighborhoods, in your schools, in your playgrounds, where they're spraying these lawns with Roundup herbicides all around your neighborhood. I mean, that's what's coming. It's that crazy.
And Roundup, I have done some reading on that subject. Pretty controversial stuff to spray on your yard or your plants, right?
Yeah, it's called glyphosate. That's the chemical name. Very, very controversial. It kills every normal plant that it comes into contact with, and it persists in the soil for many, many years. So you can't grow food in that soil, and you may need to grow food pretty soon if we have an economic situation, a collapse or a debt collapse or a devaluation of the dollar.